Okay, hi everyone. Let's get started. I know there's still people coming and joining the conversation, but I think we have a critical mass. So thank you very much for joining our workshop on online sales. My name is Emma Collenbrander. I'm head of the Global Distributors Collective and very pleased to have you all on the line today. For those of you who aren't familiar with the GDC, we are a collective of last mile distributors around the world. We work to support distributors to help them reach millions of underserved customers with beneficial products. We have over 150 members working in more than 40 countries who have cumulatively reached about 26 million people. So let's kick off by looking at the agenda for today's conversation. And you'll note that you've all entered the workshop on mute. So if you can just stay that way to reduce feedback and background noise, that would be great. So first of all, we'll just talk about the objectives for today's conversation and give a bit of context. We will then give an overview of different online sales models and what questions distributors should be asking themselves to decide whether online sales is right for them and which model might be appropriate. And note that in today's conversation, we'll use the terms online sales and e-commerce interchangeably. We will then be joined by 4 GDC members who have adopted e-commerce solutions, as well as by African online marketplace Jumia. And we'll be asking them a few questions, and then we will open up the conversation to audience Q&A. So if you have questions, please just drop them into the chat as we go. You'll see the chat box in the bar at the bottom of your screen. So next slide, please. So why are we all here today? Well, today, last mile distributors, or LMDs, mainly use sales agent networks, retail outlets, and partners like community-based organizations to reach customers. About 80% of GDC members use more than one of these distribution channels. But with the spread of affordable smartphones, internet, and mobile money, e-commerce models targeting the last mile are emerging more and more, and that includes innovative models which blend online and offline sales, and you'll hear about some of those models today. There are still challenges to be overcome with e-commerce, things like digital illiteracy and lack of trust by consumers in online transactions, not having platforms available in local languages, but ultimately e-commerce can give last mile consumers more choice. It can save them time, and it can make beneficial products more affordable because it reduces the need for expensive, below-the-line, face-to-face marketing. It also gives distributors a really good way to capture customer data, which can then inform marketing tactics, customer service strategies, and product baskets. The COVID crisis has, of course, accelerated the digital revolution. Many GDC members are reporting being unable or less able to do face-to-face sales, and are being forced to innovate their models and to do so quickly. So for some last mile distributors, online sales represents a short-term crisis response and isn't necessarily a feasible long-term business pivot. But for many distributors, online sales is a strategic long-term opportunity. And in fact, some of the members you'll be hearing from today were already doing online sales or were working to develop e-commerce platforms before the crisis hit. Because ultimately distributors operate in uncertain and complex environments, and diversifying to online sales is just one way to build a more resilient business model. And of course, the COVID crisis may change consumer behavior permanently and make online sales a more viable model for last mile distributors than it might have been before. So next slide, please. So, who are our panelists today? Well, we'll be hearing from 5 speakers sharing their experiences of online sales and lessons learned. We have 4 GDC members, and Tabi from Easy Solar, a distributor of solar products in Sierra Leone. Jackie Stenson from Essmart, which distributes more than 150 types of beneficial products to retailers in India. Arnaud Blanchet from ShopIt, which distributes consumer goods to informal retailers in South Africa's townships. Ajita Shah from Frontier Markets in India, which distributes a range of beneficial products and services to rural households through a network of female entrepreneurs. And we'll also hear from Eloi Le Roudelier, which I hope I pronounced correctly, from Jumia in Ivory Coast. Jumia is an online marketplace and logistics service provider that works across Africa. So before we hear from our panelists, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Adrian to give an overview of different online sales models, recognizing that it doesn't necessarily make sense for all distributors to set up fully fledged e-commerce platforms, but there might be incremental strategies that distributors can adopt to leverage the opportunities that e-commerce offers. So over to you, Adrian.
Thank you, Emma. So yes, in 3 minutes, and just before we hear about the speakers and their models directly, we wanted to highlight a few key dimensions of online sales to structure the discussion and make sure that we have a clear understanding. We spoke a bit with Emma about the business rationale behind starting an e-commerce business. And indeed, we've discussed for the past weeks the opportunity to build more resilient business models thanks to online sales, because it diversifies the channels and allows to react quickly to unforeseen events such as the lockdowns that happened recently, but also if we think a few years back to the cash crisis in India. So a bit in this regard, e-commerce is really a strong tool to build the resilience of the business model. It can also be a tool to more longer term develop sales volume. For example, by generating consumer data, enabling to offer premium products and added value services like home delivery and special features to customers that would really prefer this delivery channel. Or it can be something much simpler, like solving an issue of cash collection, or solving a logistical issue to create cost synergies with existing operations. So really these, having a clear view of the strategic intent behind e-commerce is really key before starting to develop a solution, because it can go in a number of ways and operational solutions. And we'll see that in a minute with the different models that we have today represented. If we talk about the key trade-offs in e-commerce, there's of course the subject of customer interaction, which starts with acquisition, marketing, but also service and after sales. And that can happen online, offline, or in part only, and can be subject to different coping strategies, because we know that the customer bases that we are dealing with today are really struggle with internet connection, digital savviness, and so on. And products can require demonstration as well, which can be a challenge. The second key dimension is, of course, the back-end operations, so the platform that you will develop or not develop, depending on the level of investment and the number of features that are strategic to your business. And the third discussion is around the logistics and specifically so delivery, but also cash collection and after sales, everything that generally happens on the ground, but can also be supplemented by online solutions. So these are really three key topics that we've tried to highlight in the next page, where we've mapped the different models that we have today along this value chain, saying whether they happen online, offline, or a combination of both, and which usually depend on the strategic choices that these companies made in launching their e-commerce business, but also on the products they sell and the features they have, on their consumer base, and on the existing solutions that they had at hand in their country of operations or not, which would explain why some features are developed in-house or not. So perhaps I'll pause here and we'll hear directly from the different speakers, starting maybe with Easy Solar. And Tabi, could you perhaps in 2 minutes present your own model and walk us through the different steps?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. Just a little bit of background into who Easy Solar is, and then I'll jump into the model. So we distribute and finance high quality solar products and appliances for people with limited access to the grid. We also offer other products like life improving cook stoves and smartphones, and customers can finance their purchase over time, enabled by pay-as-you-go technology and mobile money. And we distribute mainly, our main focus is actually to distribute through community-based agents and shops in urban and rural areas, all the way to the last mile. But even before the COVID crisis, we were thinking about how do we expand both affordability and accessibility to the households we serve. And we realized that there are significant remittance flows, both within Sierra Leone and from abroad. And these often carry burdensome fees and are not always the easiest to use. So the vision of the platform was really to create a way for anyone who wants to send power or energy services to any recipient in Sierra Leone. And the selling point is that it's easy to use, there's no hidden fees, it's reliable and it's safe. So how does it work? Just talking to the diagram you're seeing here. Basically what will happen is you will choose a product, you will just choose your recipient, you would pay online, and then we deliver and install in country. And so really there was a number of questions we had to try and answer when we were like structuring the platform, which is what you see on the left-hand side of the slide. As I mentioned, we offer customers the ability to finance their purchases over time. So when we were thinking about tapping into remittance flows, we were like, okay, do we actually just allow people to pay for existing products, or to actually like use this to generate new sales? And so the choice was to generate new sales. And then we offer payments mainly through debit and credit card, and we're going to be expanding into PayPal and mobile money. We chose Sierra Leone. We're actually also operational in Liberia, but the goal was to have an MVP in like one focus market, so we could actually like assess how well it was working. And you can send from anywhere in the world, but from like a customer acquisition and marketing perspective, we focused on both Sierra Leone and then the top diaspora locations. So that's kind of like the vision, how it works, the selling points. And if you want to go through the platform, I've put the link in there. It's not a shameless plug. It's just also just so you guys, if you're interested in seeing how it works, I think the best thing is just to demo and see it for yourself. So I'm happy to answer any questions about how we thought about it and how it works. Yeah.
Thank you, Tabi. Perhaps Jackie, could you present Essmart next?
Yeah, hi. Hi everyone, my name is Jackie. I am the co-founder and executive chair of Essmart. As Emma mentioned, we do distribution via retail shops in India. So we actually go through small mom and pop local retail shops. And when we were thinking about an e-commerce pivot, we were actually targeting a different segment. We weren't actually targeting our typical rural dwellers and households that we end up working with, but we were focusing on how urban customers who perhaps had a little bit more buying power and weren't going to be hit as hard by some of the lockdowns and the effects of COVID would ultimately be able to support our shop owners, which are a very vulnerable group when they face closures for long periods of time. So when we were thinking about our typical model is to go from our tier 3 city offices out to shop owners, out into rural households, and the e-commerce platform was to kind of do the reverse of that, to take products from our shop owners and send them into more urban areas. We set up a really simple platform on Shopify. It was a free sort of trial. They have free trials for 3 months right now, or at least it was 3 months when we started. So it didn't cost us anything. It was pretty low cost, low tech, and we listed some of our best-selling products. We sell actually almost 300 SKUs of products, mainly in categories of farming, cooking and kitchen appliances, and lighting. And I'm going to be honest, our platform has not been very successful, and we've had a lot of really interesting learnings from that. And I think that in our case, it's actually been okay because we can actually be operational again in villages, but we actually found that trying to switch your customer segment to an urban customer through online marketing versus what we do with in-person marketing, our real strength is building relationships with shop owners, meant that this was a failure. And it is not the first failure we've had with e-commerce attempts. So I'm also here representing a voice of this is a really low cost, easy way that we piloted something and it didn't work. And I think that that's also good to sort of have as a reference point. Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie. Perhaps Ajayta, over to you to present Frontier Markets.
I will need approval to open my video because my host has stopped it. So once that starts, that'd be great. There we go. Hi, everyone. So we focus on rural customers in India who have really poor access to goods and services. They're not digitally savvy, despite the widespread of smartphones and internet access, and they prefer high-touch engagement. So our strategy has been an assisted e-commerce platform where our technology is used by our entire offline network. So our rural women entrepreneurs, or Sarojivan Sahelis, our field team, and our service centers. Sahelis are still building in-person partnerships with their customers that trust her, and the field team is still physically delivering products, doing installations and after-sales service. The e-commerce tool enhances everyone's work, allowing the Saheli to collect data, onboard potential leads, place sales, coordinate deliveries and services. And then our call centers are monitoring her work and the data that she collects to help her cross-sell, upsell, resell, and also get referrals to get her new customers. Today, 4,000 Sarojivan Sahelis, 70 delivery staff, and 20 branches are all digitally enabled, allowing us to combine customer insights and direct consumer access to deliver over 800,000 curated products in energy access, home appliances, agri-tools, and smartphones to 700,000 rural customers. This helped us with COVID in terms of leveraging our platform to identify 4 new strategies. So one, we've developed a web-based link or an e-catalog to help our rural customers now directly place orders and provide feedback. We also now onboard Sahelis through virtual trainings, and we integrated fintech APIs to enable cashless transactions. And lastly, introducing a weekly doorstep delivery model for FMCG products to rural households through a subscription-based model. So in the last 3 weeks, we've onboarded 2,000 more women, 10,000 customers are using the e-catalog app for direct orders, 140 plus new SKUs are now on the e-commerce platform, 15,000 deliveries done, and about 13,000 customers are now actually opting in for cashless payments, which we see as a unique opportunity to now take to scale. And again, we'll get into more deeper questions, so I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Ajaita. Let's hear now from Arnaud and then from Eloi.
Sure. I don't know if you can see me. I think my video hasn't been allowed yet. Yeah. Great. Hi, everyone. So yeah, we're probably a bit different than the previous companies in the sense that today we sell more fast-moving consumer goods than really social products. But we come from a completely offline model where we were trying to develop and I would say distribution channels for solar lights, clean cook stoves, and other social products, and we failed at finding economies of scale. And for us, online business e-commerce has been the way to try to tackle this issue. And by having an e-commerce solution, we now address informal grocery stores in townships and rural areas in South Africa, enabling them, so it's a B2B solution, enabling them to compare prices at wholesalers and buy all their stock directly from their phone. They then get it delivered through a Uber-like model. And we've switched to a completely e-commerce solution probably 2 years ago. So we still have a few people on the field visiting stores, but the main of our customer acquisition is actually done on Facebook and WhatsApp. We're experimenting with Imo, which is an equivalent of WhatsApp, and TikTok, which is pretty used by our target market. And we've seen an opportunity during the COVID crisis to actually offer our online platform to other businesses that might find the need to reduce their offline operation and increase the online to reduce contacts with customers. And so that's what appears on the right of the screen. It's a new app that we developed for supermarkets in townships, where queues can be as long as 4 hours just to get into the supermarket because of the restriction of the number of people that can get in the stores. And so we help them to digitize all their store and be able to sell all their products directly online. What has been interesting for us in switching from an offline to an online model 2 years ago was trying to only focus on what we could do and not try to reinvent the wheel. So we use existing payment solutions that people are used to, so we don't change too much the behavior. We use existing logistics solution and we just plug our solution into it. We link to management software of the different suppliers that we partner with. And if they don't have some, we create a tool to link with them. So basically our solution is pretty lean in the sense that we are plugging it into a lot of existing solution, and that reduce the scope of what we needed to develop and the cost that we had to do it. I'm happy to answer a bit more information. We've got 6,000 stores that are part of our community and look at the different products that we have. And they're all based in the Western Cape, so around Cape Town in South Africa.
Thank you, Arnaud. And now Elwa from Jumia.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Elwa and I work at Jumia Ivory Coast. And just to give you a bit of background, so I'm part of the marketing department, and among many things, I am in charge of the upcountry development of Jumia Ivory Coast. And more specifically of a specific program, which is called the Jumia Force program, which is basically a sales force made of independent sales consultants that is designed to reach consumers that do not have or have a limited access to the internet. And so the sales force is quite big in Ivory Coast. We have more than 5,000 consultants active every month. And basically it's quite a strong channel, sales channel for Jumia Ivory Coast. And so on top of that, I'm also in charge of the development of pickup stations all across Ivory Coast. So we've realized that it's quite important to have a strong presence on the ground if you want to run e-commerce operations in BOP markets. So we've built quite a strong logistics network with many pickup stations, as I said, and also this sales force of on the ground sales consultants who target consumers with limited access to the internet. So we're not, at Jumia, we are selling all types of goods. I think like ShopIt, we do not sell only social impact goods, even though we have some solar panels, products like that. And what we've realized with the Corona crisis in Ivory Coast is that we were not, what we were selling up country, especially in rural areas where equipment goods, so basically fridges, freezers, smartphones. So for basic equipment, you need to cook. So it was a really interesting time to see this shift in consumption. Actually, consumption increased in increased up country, and so just to give you a bit, just to explain how you can leverage Jumia to run to distribute your products online, you have two options. The first option is the most frequent one. You can open a shop on the Jumia marketplace, and so basically it's just like Shopify, but we are also running the logistics of it. So basically we process the payment for you and we deliver the products for you. And you can even stock your products in your own warehouse. This is called Jumia Express. And then you have a second option because we realized that selling online was also something that was very popular using social networks. So we've recently decided to open our logistics to other companies or to other distributors. So basically, this means you have, this is the second option, and this means that you have the complete autonomy on the way you sell your products. So you can use platforms such as Shopify, but you can also use WhatsApp, which is the most common used social network in Africa. You can also use Facebook or Instagram. They have a shop option that you can use. And so basically we only take care of the logistics. So this gives you more flexibility, and I think it's maybe a cheaper option if you want to run some tests. And it's especially a good option if you have a strong customer base. Okay, so this is it for me.
Thank you, Eloi. And I think I'll hand over to Emma for Q&A now, and we might go back to some of the points that you raised now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. So we have a couple of questions for our panelists. And then, as mentioned, we would like to open this up to the audience. So do start dropping your questions into the chat box, please. So the first question is really around customer acquisition. So Arnaud, I think let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you acquire your customers and how this has changed with COVID?
Yeah, sure. So we used to just go door to door when we started, and try to. So we had a few kind of pickup lines for the traders that we wanted to work with. The first one was to ask them how much they would pay for a product, and show them that we could have the product for a cheaper price. This is something that is difficult to scale. And with or without COVID, it's difficult to just scale our business this way. So we decided to switch more to digital marketing, and we had to do a big work of knowing our traders and our target market. So we know what is their interest, we know what page they like, we know where they set their location, we know when they go online and where they're offline. We tried to get a lot of patterns, and we switched completely our acquisition strategy from offline to online. And today we reduced the acquisition costs using Facebook drastically compared to what we used to do. And we start using also WhatsApp to do that. I wouldn't say that COVID changed the way we address them, because we were already completely online. What is sure is that we don't see any disruption in the way we do it, because we're not affected by lockdowns using this strategy. So yeah, that's what we've done to acquire new customer online. And I would say that adapting from offline to online, what we learned was that you need to know your customer even better to address it online, because otherwise it will cost you quite a lot to have a very broad audience. If you use Facebook, for example, the more precise you are in the type of person that you want to target, in the knowledge that you have of these people, what group they like, what language they speak, and these type of things, what age they are, the easiest it will be for you to target them, and the cheapest it will be. So we take it almost as a game with our marketing team, or at least our digital marketing manager tries to reduce the cost of the digital acquisition, and he's learned a lot how Facebook works to be able to adapt his strategy.
Fantastic, thank you. And Tabi and Jackie, you are both targeting different customer segments through your platforms from your usual customer base. So can you talk a little bit about what you've learned in adapting those customer acquisition strategies? And Tabi, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I think initially we thought our target market was different. So, thinking about diaspora and people who, are in urban areas in Sierra Leone who are sending money to their relatives. And so our initial customer acquisition strategy was focusing on both PR internationally and locally, as well as social media, and just like promoting the platform, selling all of the amazing selling points that we thought we had. And then I think, you know, after like reviewing it, we only launched it like 2 months ago. So I think it's still a learning curve. But some of the things that we realized quite quickly was that the end user is still the same. And it's just like the person acquiring and paying for it that may be different. And so the lesson learned, I think, for us is actually just focusing on what we do well and the assets that we already have, which is our strong brand in Sierra Leone. So when you're doing a paid digital campaign to diaspora abroad, they have no idea who Easy Solar is. It's a durable good. Why would they like go for you versus like a MoneyGram or Western Union? And why would they pay for power when they can just send, you know, their relative money and they do with it what they need to? So we've changed and we've pivoted a bit to focusing really on Sierra Leone, and we realized like the PR and the paid campaigns that we did through social media worked best in Sierra Leone, right? Because people already knew the brand. There's already a sense of trust, which is really important with e-commerce, because yeah, it's like, where's your money going? And so yeah, I think that's been the biggest learning from that our end user is still the same. So why not leverage that and do marketing from the inside out and get people who are already aware of Easy Solar but may not be able to afford a product to say, hey, can you send this to me using this link? So yeah.
Thanks. Jackie?
Yeah. So we also, as Emma mentioned, we're targeting a different customer base instead of rural households and our shop owners who are actually our customers. To be honest, we were targeting more urban customers through e-commerce. And what we basically found is that we tried a bunch of different ways to reach these customers. We promoted through social media, through different communications platforms, but there was a lot of things in the way that we were structuring this that were difficult to overcome. Namely, we didn't want to spend any money on something that was new. And so we didn't want to pay for ads. And that meant that basically we didn't get a ton of support through, you know, like we could get filtered out by algorithms and other things that were happening. And we just are not that great at social media and online marketing. It's not our core expertise. Our core expertise is relationship building. Our strength is our shop network that are able to convince people to buy things that they otherwise don't know of. So we found that for us, that lack of online marketing as our skill, which has not been a problem at all with our actual operations, did mean that it made switching our customer base really challenging. So overall, we actually found that didn't work particularly well. We did get some increased visibility, and we actually had a couple customers reach out to us and not buy through our platform, but actually contact us and order over 100 products. So there was some benefit that happened to this increased visibility. But in general, I think what we learned is that it's okay that we know where our strength is, and that for us, it's a good data point. We run a lot of pilots internally. We've run some pilots that are really successful. We run some pilots that are failures. And if we were to do something like this again, then we would know that there really needs to be a focus on online marketing, on social media, on buying ads, on promoting it, things that even to date have never been our focus because we're so focused on our shop owners and on the last mile. I think for us, we have also tried a pilot where we actually tried to get our shop owners to use e-commerce, and that also didn't go so well. And that was because we basically found that shop owners and end customers don't love buying durable products that need demos or after sales service or some sort of informal financing via somewhere where they can't actually touch and feel and be assured of these products. So for us, it's actually a really great data point and a learning that we know where our sort of key strength is. And ultimately we're okay. We can, for us in this particular time, we can actually locally operate and have had a growth in our local offline operations. So it's been a really good test for us. But we found that if we were to ever push a strategy, really push a strategy like this, we need someone on the team that actually has social media and online marketing experience, something that our team has not needed to be built for and isn't built for. So that was probably the biggest lesson for us.
Great, thanks, Jackie. Really good to get the perspective from a sort of tried and tested and less successful model.
But we should celebrate more failures, I think. We run a lot of pilots, and and I think that we don't talk enough about the things that go wrong with them. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I think e-commerce is not going to be the right solution for every distributor, right? So I think it is important to hear that perspective. So finally then, Ajita, it'd be good to hear about your strategies for customer acquisition and to answer maybe one of the questions that has come up that Jackie has also touched on, which is this challenge around product demonstration and how for a lot of distributors, this is a really critical piece of the puzzle for consumers to understand the value proposition of a product and be persuaded to buy. So how have you managed this with e-commerce?
Yeah, sure. So we have a three-pronged approach. So we'll look at offline and online both, right? So on the online side, look, our call centers are data obsessed, right? And so what we end up doing is we end up leveraging existing data, and then against that, we do proactive outreach. So that's through direct calling, it's through IVR, it's through WhatsApp, it's through SMS awareness, and our goal is to help the customers access e-catalog, but also coordinate a local visit from their Saheli or scheduled deliveries. Sahelis are physically showcasing products either via the app, or they're also physically getting access to products that they can rotate amongst them in like a larger branch. And then they're also like physically there to help customers if they need help in terms of not understanding an IVR message or not understanding WhatsApp or not understanding the catalog. And then I think the key is also the delivery person that comes, because when you're trying to do doorstep delivery, when someone sees a guy in a yellow outfit physically going and delivering products, other people start talking about it. And that's what actually allows them to feel like there's trust, and you end up onboarding more people. So I think for us, it's been a combination of in-person digital tools that allow us to then track customer acquisition, retention, and then build on those insights. The key is that the rural customer and the Sahelis need to feel confident that we're hearing them, we're serving them at the right time for what they want and what they need. And so, I think hearing from everybody else, I don't believe it's one or the other. It has to be a combination of both. And fundamentally, the challenge over here, I think always is that we have this perception that in-person engagement or demo units is a high cost and e-commerce and tech is a low cost. But the fact is that each of them have different cost structures, and you need to think about where the combination achieves what you're looking for, which ultimately in our case is retention. It's conversion, first of all. So can you convert your customer fast? And because you're working in high volume places, that customer can get you ideally 5 new customers or 10 new customers. So thereby by definition, reducing your cost of customer acquisition over a period of time, and also leveraging key insights to sell more stuff. So keeping those in mind, it's why we actually endorse a hybrid model and not one versus the other for our target customer base. Hope that helps.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so if we can move to the next slide, let's take a look at the second question, which is around partnerships. And this also, I think, addresses a couple of the questions that have been coming in. So as we kind of saw in that framework that Adrian presented, there are a number of operations in the value chain that distributors can choose to either outsource or manage in-house. So it would be good to understand from the panelists what decisions you've made and why. So Tabi and Ajita, you have both kept all of your operations in-house. So can you maybe tell us a bit about why you've chosen this approach as opposed to working with partners? Tabi?
Yeah, sure. I think pretty short and sweet. We had a lot of the resources in-house. So looking at the value chain that we talked about, so customer acquisition and marketing, we had like a really strong online marketing person who was able to kind of lead that. And we had a pretty structured approach to it. On building the platform itself, we had a strong tech team. So we didn't really need to outsource that. It did take a bit more time because we had like a certain set of user stories and it changed and adapted over time. So maybe having somebody outside might have been helpful. And then, yeah, on the delivery and the installation side of things, our key asset is our last mile distribution network. And so, yeah, we didn't need to outsource logistics or distribution or installation, just because, yeah, that was kind of the key selling point, that we have a network across the country. So yeah, it was just, I think, a blend of having everything in-house already, and that being cost effective.
Thanks, Tabi. Ajita?
Yeah, so I mean, slightly different, right? So to be fair, like we've partnered with payment services or fintech companies to facilitate the back-end part of our cashless system. So for example, like Echo India Financial Services, they manage our entire back-end payment gateway, but like we need to be the ones that onboard the customers, verify them, and serve them at the end. We also work with local NGOs and communities to enter new markets because we leverage their access to rural customers and data, and also even access to rural women, because through them we'll understand the markets more effectively and then recruit women first. And then we also work really closely with product and service companies to build like product messaging, training, and pricing, so we can onboard customers and sales quickly. So for example, as we start introducing more solutions like insurance or even government services, we're going to have to increase our reliance on those partners, because we can't possibly do the training and leveraging that partner's strength like well. Where we haven't done partnerships, and again, this is a lesson, was where we were looking at deliveries, because ultimately there were two reasons. One, we felt that the customer feels like there's an accountability that comes in when the company is actually talking about the product and they want to see an end-to-end fulfillment. I can't afford to like have delay in deliveries or have a broken solution reach my customer. So we know when the delivery gets to the customer directly, they're happy and the neighbors are inspired to join us, which I think, similar to what Tabi said, like this is about a brand, it's a holistic brand equity strategy. Sales and customers need to feel our presence in multiple ways, and that's what strengthens our ability to get customer loyalty.
Great, thank you. So Arnaud, you work with partners across the whole value chain, which is obviously a slightly different approach. So can you tell us a bit about which parts of your operations you've outsourced and who those partners are and why you made those decisions?
Yes. So what we looked at when we started our online operation was what is already working, who are the people who are doing it and doing a great job, and how could we actually leverage what they're doing to help us in what we do. So we found that there were a great payment solution for informal traders. So we decided to just integrate with this platform and not create a new payment solution or an e-wallet for our members, but just use what was existing. The decision behind that was, and actually that has not been very successful, but the one of the reasons behind this decision was to say, if we use these platforms, we can help them, we can help them to get access to our traders, but we can also ask them to get access to their customers. And so that was partly for us a strategic move, not to have to invest too much in developing payment solution, but also a marketing decision saying, well, perhaps it would give us access actually to a lot of users already using this solution. It hasn't worked, but we're still trying to pursue this opportunity. We've done the same thing with logistics, trying to not reinvent the wheel and use existing solutions to run our operation. We still want to select the drivers that will deliver our products. It's more for security reasons in South Africa. We want to make sure that the drivers know the area where they collect or deliver products, just to make sure that people also know them and that they don't run into any security risk for themselves, for the vehicles that they drive, or for the stock. And for the rest, we've decided to do it in-house because we thought that it was actually important to be able to be very flexible in what we were offering. So I'll take an example. This morning, I went to test a new app that we developed for supermarkets. I did a user test with an old woman who was over 70 years old, and I could pick up some things that she would do differently from our perhaps younger users. And that tells me a lot about how we can change and improve our app. And as we do it in-house, I can just send a message to our development team and this afternoon the change will be done. So I think that it's important for us to be flexible on that part. That is very strategic for users to feel that they can use this app easily. But for things that they already use in other contexts, we can just bring them to our app and we don't need to reinvent it. So that's basically how we decided what we would develop and what we wouldn't. If it was existing and used, then we just took it out of the shelf.
Great, thanks Arnaud. So Elwa, then over to you, because Jumia is a service provider for last mile distributors to support their operations across the value chain. So it would be good if you could tell us a little bit about what you offer potential distribution partners and how they can work with you to sell their products online. And we've had a specific question from one of our members based in Uganda about whether Jumia Logistics is active in Uganda as well.
Yeah, so I'm working for Ivory Coast, so I cannot answer with certainty to the Ugandan question. But what I can say is that normally it's running. If you want to reach out to them, you just have to go to the Jumia.uj website and go to the contact section, and I think you get more information from them. So I think one of the speakers said that it's important not to reinvent the wheel, and I think that Jumia can help you do that. So basically, we've built a platform, we've built a logistics network, and you can use these tools to launch your online operations. I think it's very important regarding logistics. It's very costly, and I think if you want to be cost efficient and to run as smoothly as possible, I think it's important to delegate that to a service provider. And so in Ivory Coast, I think we have the most expanded logistics network, because we've based our strategy on the opening of pickup stations. We have more than 80 cities covered in Ivory Coast, which is more than the National Post Office. So we have considerably increased our reach. Regarding the online operations, I think, as I said before, you have two options. Either you can decide to launch a shop, or if you want to run some tests and to keep your on-the-ground presence, you can use other tools such as social networks, and it works actually pretty well. I think it's above all, it's really important that when you decide to launch e-commerce operations and sell online in BOP markets, it's really important for you to have a mobile first strategy. It's the only thing you need to keep in mind. But for me, the channel is not that important. Whether you decide to open a shop on Shopify or to open a shop on Jumia, the only thing that will change is your customer experience. But you can start online operations with very, very simple operations and delegate your logistics to a service provider. Okay.
Okay, great. So if we move on to the final question, and I think we've been able to answer a couple of the questions that have come in already, and I think we'll use this third question to answer some other questions that have come in as well. So I think it would be good to hear from all of our panelists what some of what maybe one of kind of the key challenges you've faced has been in pivoting to online sales, and a recommendation that you would make to distributors who are contemplating the e-commerce opportunity. So Jackie, I might start with you, and it would also be good if you can answer the question that came in for you about your plans for digital marketing in the future. Do you plan to remain totally offline post the crisis, given the experience that you've had with your online sales pilot?
Yeah, so I think my sort of, I guess, recommendation is to know what your strengths are and to leverage those and figure out exactly what it is about your model right now and where you're really good. For us, that's relationships with shop owners and having essentially shop owners be extensions of our employee force and figuring out how to leverage those. And if you want to test something out, do it for free or do it super, super cheap. And so those would be sort of my main recommendations. In sort of response to that one question, the answer for us is, I mentioned before that we've piloted things before. We have run 8 experiments on the effects of various types of digital marketing, e-commerce, offline marketing, online marketing, etc., with our network. And we have found nothing proving in any of those experiments that there's actually a correlation with an increase in sales for us. And that really it's the offline relationship with the shop owner that has actually the strongest effect on our sales. So for us, we are actually going to continue this strategy. And I think we're in a little bit of a unique position in that our sales are actually up 50% this month compared to our highest month ever. So we're in a slightly different position. So we've decided, you know, this was a really good learning and lesson for us. We're very busy on the ground with operations. We've learned what our strengths are, and we know that should we ever want to do this again, we need to make sure we're filling in where some of the gaps. But for us, it was really a learning opportunity, and do it in a controlled manner so that you can actually analyze what the results are.
Thanks, Jackie. So Tabi and Ajita, I'd like to turn to you next, and it would be great if you could answer one of the questions that's come in from a couple of people, which is around the fact that a lot of base of pyramid consumers are not tech savvy and have no digital presence. So what advice would you have for last mile distributors who are working with a largely offline customer base? Is there an e-commerce opportunity for those distributors?
Do you mind if I go first? I'm a little worried my internet's going to drop out because it's shaking as unstable connectivity right now, which is the other challenge. So I appreciate that question, and I was actually going to say the same thing. So for me, assisted e-commerce is like really needed for the kind of locations that people are talking about, right? When it's BOP, the reality is that even if people had smartphones, they weren't necessarily trained on using the smartphone this way. You know, any digital training set that we've seen up until now has been like, how do you turn your phone on and off? How do you take a picture? How do you make a phone call? This is a very different ballgame altogether. So one has been about, we've been creating video tools. We've been trying things with like using WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is used quite frequently, but started with like a web link. So a simple link that could be used by like a feature phone or even a smartphone if they have one, that allows them to fill a form as if it looked like a tech app, just to get their feedback and inputs on how it can be better designed. We also work very closely with our Segelis and our customers to originally design the actual solution. So like everything from how it should look on the screen, what do symbols mean if people can't read stuff, et cetera, has been a really important piece. And lastly, I'd say that let's start working on bridging the gaps that we know are there. So our women, to be fair, none of them had smartphones. None of them had 4G connectivity, even though it's quote unquote scaled in India. And so we finally just doubled down and we said, can we just get them the smartphones? Can we give them 4G phone numbers? And can we link it to their business performance? So eventually they can either co-invest or they'll double down because of the productivity that gets created. So somewhere we've been just trying to work on bridging gaps, investing heavily on training, finding new tools, and co-creating. And those are kind of been our 4 key ways to kind of address the key BOP challenges that will come with less digital savvy places.
Thanks, Jaita. And Tabi, over to you. And we are nearly out of time. So if I can ask you to keep it as short and sweet as possible, and then over to you, Arnaud, that would be great.
Yeah, I think for us, and probably echoing a lot of what everyone else said, is that we realize the value proposition has to remain the same. And so I think a lot of the questions that are coming up is like demonstration, trust building. And so our platform was actually designed in mind with the fact that a lot of customers that we are targeting already are maybe receiving flows from a family member or, you know, either in Sierra Leone or abroad. And those people tend to be a little bit more tech savvy. So what we're really, you know, the focus has been on really trying to focus on them. But now what we're actually thinking of doing is to use the trust engine that has allowed us to like expand in local markets, which is through referrals, people like seeing the product, saying, hey, it works. And actually just using that with people who've had experiences on online platforms. So the next phase we're moving to is actually building in a referral system for people who can say, yes, these people delivered within 24 to 48 hours, the product works. So referrals both on the people who received the products in country that said, yeah, my family member sent this to me and it works, it's perfect, it was super easy. And then on the person paying. And we hope by like sort of sharing those stories and offering an incentive for people who do that, we can kind of help, get more traction. So I think, just focus on what already works, which is I think a lot of what people have been saying, and we're just adapting that now to the online platform.
Thanks, Tabi. Arnaud, over to you for a last piece of wisdom.
I'll be very brief. I agree with what have been said by the other speakers. I think that the main challenge is to I mean, there's a lot of challenges, but it would be overcoming data availability. Can people actually connect? Where to meet them? And I think my single recommendation would be to go where they are. So if people don't use anything, then it will be very difficult to get any online solution. But if they use WhatsApp, which is an app that is used by a lot of people, even when they don't have a lot of digital solution available for them or use a lot of them, that's where you should go. And that's how we started with WhatsApp messages and WhatsApp broadcast messages. Then we went to Facebook. And from there, we brought them to an app. So I would say start where your customers are before you have a fully developed e-commerce solution. And I'm very happy to give more information about how we did it and the solution that we developed that we're starting to white label. So we offer it to companies that would like to get an online presence.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. Adrian, if you just want to go to the final slide. So in terms of next steps, we'll be following up with a summary document and a recording of the webinar. A huge thank you to our wonderful panelists and to the audience for the great questions that came in. Today's conversation is just one of the ways that we are working to support our members at this time. Hopefully you've seen our COVID-19 resources page where we're collating resources and funding opportunities. And there's a whole lot more going on behind the scenes. So watch this space for more offers and opportunities and get in touch if there's any particular topics or content that you want to see from us. So for now, thank you very much again for joining us, and we will be following up shortly. Thanks, everyone.